let me take you to Iran. Let me show you a picture of Iran, I believe, in 1978. Here it is. See that? Is that what you were expecting to see, I wonder? So often our view of Iran is of this place that is controlled by religious zealots who force women to bundle up entirely, wear headscarves, hijabs, and whatnot. Look, if you're a religious person yourself, nothing wrong with wearing a hijab. There's something very wrong with forcing someone who is not religious to wear one. But that was Iran once upon a time. Then the Iranian Revolution happened, 1979. Wasn't that simple, though. This guy, that I will presumably pull up in a moment. There we go. This fella. That was the Shah. He was part of the coup in the 50s, I think 53. His name was Pahlavi. Another name I'm sure I'm getting wrong. But by the spelling in the English I'm able to speak, his name is Shah Pahlavi. Or rather, his title was Shah, and his last name is Pahlavi. Anyway, he was part of the coup in the 50s that began a lot of, frankly, progressive reforms for Iran. They had 20 years of building progressive societal reforms. This might start to sound eerily familiar to you because during that time, there was a growing distress in the population against the old guard, the traditionalists, who didn't care for those reforms, the religious fundamentalists, who didn't like seeing women not wearing their religious garb. He viewed what he referred to as the White Revolution. Revolution aligning more with the Western forces and Western ideas as a way to preempt the Red Revolution, because the Cold War was in full swing at this time. And he didn't want things to go to the Soviet way of doing things. Now, I disagree with what the Soviets were in actuality. But the unfortunate thing is, what he actually did was pave the way for the Islamic Revolution, where those far-right forces that did not like people living differently than they wanted to live, they took over in 1979. And you don't see pictures of women without hijabs in Iran these days. Until recently. See, that guy, he was the equivalent of a centrist Democrat. He was on the side of the people who were progressive in Iran, but he believed in trickle-down economics, that silly concept where if you give the rich more money, supposedly that money will make its way down to the poor. Didn't work then, hasn't worked ever. The anger, the outrage at that inequity is what the religious fundamentalists were able to take advantage of in order to take over the country. They could blame everything wrong with the country on policies like that and tie them in to people that wouldn't follow the details to simply being Western. The great news is people get sick of oppression. Here's Lawrence O'Donnell with great developments. It's a weird way to say that. Great developments in the country.
Since the September 16th death of Masih Alinejad, who was killed in the custody of Iran's morality police after being arrested for what they said was not properly wearing a headscarf, more than 520 protesters have been killed in Iran, and more than 19,300 have been detained, according to human rights activists in Iran. Nick Kristof reports in the New York Times, one gauge of the hypocrisy of the Iranian regime is that there are credible reports that it is enforcing its supposedly strict moral code by arresting women and girls accused of advocating immodesty and then sexually assaulting them. Iranians understand that gross immorality lies not in a girl's uncovered hair, but in the government that rapes her for it, and they should receive far more international support. Our next guest, Masih Alinejad, spoke to Canadian.
I could not agree more with her take just then. And I want to remind you, there's a whole lot of people in the United States of America right now that are advocating for the country to become a theocracy. They are called Christian nationalists, and they want us to be no different than Iran is currently, except instead of a crescent moon, you would see a cross. But the same treatment of women. That is what they're advocating for.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau earlier this week.
We need you. We need your action. Yeah. We have common enemy, common virus, Islamic Republic.
Once upon a time, they went to America with those kinds of requests. We have fallen far.
Joining us now, Masih Alinejad. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
What else can you tell us about your discussion with Trudeau?
It was the third anniversary of 176 Iranian Canadians got killed by Iran's Revolutionary Guards. What I said to Justin Trudeau 4 years ago when I was in Canadian Parliament and calling Canadian government to sanction Revolutionary Guards, they didn't. The same Revolutionary Guards killed innocent people after 3 years. And I asked him to put the Revolutionary Guards on the terrorist list. And don't forget, Lawrence, it's not just me. Millions of people calling the free democratic countries to legitimize and recognize the revolution and put the Revolutionary Guards on the terrorist list. Right now, the massive rally is taking place in France, another one in Washington, D.C., which I'm going to join it. And the main demand is the same. Just isolate the Islamic Republic the same way that you isolate Putin.
So I just want to say, it's huge. It's huge. She's on television, which will be seen around the world in one form or another, saying this. And it is so brave. You hear people doing things like this called brave a lot. And the word is used in a number of different ways, and it's usually correct. It's usually an accurate description. But let me be clear about why she is brave in this situation. She could be killed. Just like the farther right America goes, and the more it allows people to just be out Christian nationalists advocating for a theocracy in our country, the more terrorists we have to deal with. Iran's just a little bit farther down that path. Couple years at the pace we're currently going. Think of how dangerous it is to be a trans person in the U.S. right now. We have our version of the Taliban outside of children's storybook reading sessions, just waiting for the police to look the other way for a moment. That's what we have now. She's got to go home to that.
When does this protest become a revolution?
Because she prefers a flower to a scarf. Madness.
The moment when women, shoulder to shoulder with men, started to burn headscarves. You know
so
what?
It is already a revolution.
It is a revolution.
Yeah.
Look,
Hell yeah.
the more that the regime kill, the more that people get determined to protest against the regime. The family members of young teenagers who got killed, you know what they say? They turned the funeral into massive rally, and one of the fathers said that this revolution needed blood, and my son sacrificed his life. And I get goosebumps that some teenagers, when I go and check their social media, they wrote before going to the protest, they wrote, many of them, that this might be our last day. One of them said that this land, Iran, didn't give anything to me, but I give my head, I sacrifice my life for my country. So that actually shows you that people are fed up with the Islamic Republic, and this is just the beginning of the end.
We need to take steps in our own country to ensure that that kind of courage is not necessary here, but you better be ready to have it if it ever becomes necessary. Next time there's a Black Lives Matter protest, and by the way, there might be a whole lot soon, you have to go in knowing that domestic violent extremists, as the Department of Homeland Security calls them, also known as terrorists, will use that as an opportunity to attack you. Go anyway. Ask yourself if you can be as brave as an Iranian teenager. You better be. And we should support these people. Again, it's fine if you choose to wear a headscarf. It's not fine to force somebody else to wear one. If they believe it's a superstition, it's simply not part of their religious beliefs, how long does humanity have to go on before we learn this lesson? You cannot force someone else to follow your religion. We should support these people in any way we can. In any way we can.
In a situation where your future is so limited, then this willing to sacrifice, make the highest sacrifice, becomes more possible. And so this dynamic is I don't see what changes in this dynamic going forward. Why would this revolution slow down? I don't see why it would.
No, look, the level of the brutality, it's very intense. I mean, can you believe that the government used like any tactic, raping women in prison right now, hanging people? 50 people are being sentenced to death. 5 of them got executed, and 5 are in the death row. And the regime actually take the family members on TV to denounce their beloved one, make them to do forced confessions. Many young girls and boys being, they lost their eyes. So
Jesus.
they use all the tactics to actually stop this revolution. But the revolution itself happened inside people's heart. Even those who supported the revolution saying that the Islamic Republic is against our dignity. This is the first time we see sense of unity among Iranians inside and outside. Oppositions are getting united to have a united front line to tell the rest of the world that this is the time. You have to stand with the people of Iran, not with the murderers.
How clearly is information spread in Iran about what's going on? Do people know who's been arrested, who's going to be executed? Is that information getting out?
That's a problem. Look, the Iranian regime filtered social media to prevent people to take to the streets. But another reason which people are furious because, as you mentioned, it's not easy to get the information, to spread the information. Using social media is a crime. But at the same time, the tech companies allowing Khamenei and his gang of killers to use social media. You know, I cannot believe it. Twitter kicked out President Trump. And people were cheering here in America. But still, Khamenei is enjoying freedom of expression on Twitter. Elon Musk, if you hear me, kick them out. I mean, we need your help to, we need more Starlink in Iran because it's not easy for people. And another thing is that sending videos to.
I'm going to pause it there for a moment because this is what you can do. In the description, there is a contact link, or rather, there is a link for finding your representative. Find them, go to their contact page. You just type their name, and it'll pull up their website. You can find the contact for them. Every representative takes calls from their constituents, takes emails from their constituents. Express to them that you want to hear them. You want to hear them demanding that these social media companies boot off Iran's current leaders for the same reason Trump got booted off. Go to your representative. Make this an issue that they have to care about. I'll tell you, it takes about 5 or 6 emails from all their constituents to constitute a big effing deal. They very rarely hear from you and people like you. It matters to them a lot. Do contact them and do tell them you want Iran's leaders kicked off. You want protections put in place for the Iranian protesters on these major social media companies. If they're going to exist in America and live fat and happy off the tax breaks we, for some reason, choose to keep giving them, all right, they better earn it. Contact your representative. Help that lady out. That lady's risking her life right now. The least you and I can do, write a damn email.
Journalists like me, activists like me outside Iran, it's a crime. It's a crime. But at the same time, we see that CNN give platform to Iranian officials, to not just CNN, many media. But at the same time, if Iranian activists, journalists do interview with media abroad, they will go to prison. So this is, and I have to say, this is a war. Unfair.
It is.
People don't have guns and bullets. The regime, they have guns and bullets, power, money, media, everything. But people are not going to give up. All we need just support from the leaders of G7. Kick out the Islamic Republic diplomats.
Absolutely.
And recall the ambassadors when you see that innocent teenagers are getting executed for the crime of peacefully protesting.
Yeah. I mean, you cannot treat this country, Iran, like it is, like it's acting decently day to day. They are killing their people over a desire to not wear a head garment. That's insane. They're killing their people over not following what they believe, the people believe, to be superstition. It's that simple. If you are a devout Islamic individual, if you're a traditional Muslim, and you do believe in every tenet of Islam as interpreted by the government of Iran, okay, you do that for you. But you know it's wrong. And I don't think I have heard, I don't want to speak for other people, but I have not heard in my experience any Muslim suggesting that others should be forced to live as they live. Because that's not how you run a country. Time and time again, we see what theocracy becomes, and it is brutal. You can help. Contact your representative. She just laid out her demands, but it comes down to do not have the G7 accept the diplomats from Iran until this behavior stops. And at a minimum, protesters are simply allowed to protest. But also tell them you want to hear them speak out about this issue, because it should be important to you. We should not let that woman stand alone against a brutal regime. Stand with her. If she can risk her life, you can write an email. I can write an email. That's what I'm doing tonight. My poor representative hears from me often. Hopefully yours will hear from you. Links in the description.